15. Circulation. First we'll see blood composition and coagulation. Blood is the main circulating fluid in the human body. Study of blood is known as hematology. Blood is a fluid connective tissue derived from mesoderm. It is bright red, slightly alkaline, that means having the pH 7.4, salty, viscous fluid heavier than water. The average size adult has about 5 liters of blood, which constitutes about 8% of the total body weight. Then the composition. Blood is composed of two main components, plasma 55% and blood corpuscles 45%. Plasma. It is a straw-colored, slightly alkaline viscous fluid. It contains 90 to 92% water and 8 to 10% of solutes, most of which are proteins. Plasma proteins are serum albumin, serum globulin, heparin, fibrinogen, and prothrombin. In addition, there are some nutrients such as glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, glycerol, etc. Then there are also some nitrogenous wastes such as urea, uric acid, ammonia, some gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide and nitrogen, and some regulatory substances like enzymes and hormones. In addition, there are some inorganic substances like bicarbonates, chlorides, etc. Blood corpuscles are suspended in plasma, and these are of three types. 1. Erythrocytes, that is RBCs. These are circular, biconcave, non-nucleated cells, and the size is about 7 μm in diameter and 2.5 μm in thickness. There are about 5 to 5.8 million RBCs per cubic millimeter of blood in adult male and 4.3 to 5.2 million per cubic mm in adult female. This is known as total RBC count. The average lifespan is about 120 days. The formation of RBCs is called as erythropoiesis. In fetus, it occurs in liver and spleen, whereas in adults, it occurs in red bone marrow. The old and worn out RBCs are destroyed in liver and spleen. Increase in number of RBCs is polycythemia, whereas decrease in the number is erythrocytopenia. The cytoplasm of RBCs contain respiratory pigment called hemoglobin, which helps in transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The normal hemoglobin content in adult male is 13 to 18 gram per 100 ml of blood, and in adult female it is 11.5 to 16.5 grams per 100 ml of blood. Less amount of hemoglobin leads to anemia. The RBCs transport oxygen from lungs to tissues and carbon dioxide from tissues to lungs. They maintain the blood pH as hemoglobin acts as a buffer. They also maintain the viscosity of blood. Then second blood corpuscle is leukocyte or white blood corpuscles, that is WBCs. These are colorless, nucleated, amoeboid and phagocytic cells. They can squeeze out of blood capillaries. This is diapedesis. The size is about 8 to 15 μm, and these are about 5,000 to 9,000 WBCs per cubic millimeter of blood. This is total WBC count. Average lifespan about 3 to 4 days. The formation of WBC is leukopoiesis, and it occurs in red bone marrow, spleen, lymph nodes, tonsils, etc. Increase in number of WBC is leukocytosis and decrease is leukopenia. Leukemia is a pathological increase in number of WBCs and commonly called blood cancer. The dead WBCs are destroyed by phagocytosis in blood, liver and lymph node. The leukocytes are of further two types. 1. Granulocytes. These show granular cytoplasm and lobed nucleus. These are further subclassified as 1. Neutrophils, These constitute about 70% of total WBCs. The nucleus is 3 to 5 lobed. These are phagocytic in function and engulf microorganisms. Then eosinophils, that is acidophils. These constitute about 3% of total WBCs. The nucleus is bilobed. These are non-phagocytic and their number increases during allergic conditions. This condition is called eosinophilia. Then basophils. They constitute about 0.5% of total WBC. The nucleus is twisted. These are non-phagocytic and they release heparin and histamine. Now agranulocytes. There is absence of granules in the cytoplasm and nucleus is not lobed. These are further subclassified. 1. Lymphocytes. They have large round nucleus. They produce antibodies and responsible for immune response of the body. Then monocytes. These are the largest of all WBCs and they show large kidney-shaped nucleus. They are phagocytic in function and at the site of infection, they engulf microorganisms and remove cell debris. Hence, they are called as scavengers. Then, the third blood corpuscle is platelets or thrombocytes. These are non-nucleated, round and biconvex. They are the smallest elements of blood with size 2.5 to 5 μm in diameter. They are about 2.5 lakhs per cubic millimeter of blood. The lifespan is about 5 to 10 days. Thrombocytes are fragments formed from large cells called megakaryocytes of bone marrow. Formation process is called thrombopoiesis, while the increase in platelet count is thrombocytosis. The decrease in platelet count is thrombocytopenia. The thrombocytes aggregate at the site of injury and form a platelet plug. They release thromboplastin, which helps in clotting of blood. Next we'll move to blood coagulation. As soon as the blood vessel ruptures, bleeding starts. The conversion of liquid blood into semi-solid jelly is called blood coagulation or clotting. But inside an intact blood vessel, blood does not coagulate due to presence of active anticoagulants like heparin and antithrombins. The platelets and injured tissue releases thromboplastin. This initiates the formation of enzyme prothrombinase in the blood. In the presence of calcium ions, the prothrombinase converts inactive plasma protein called prothrombin into active thrombin. The thrombin converts soluble fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin. The fibrin fibers enmesh platelets, blood cells and plasma to form a clot. The normal clotting time is 2 to 8 minutes. Blood groups. Human beings exhibit 4 types of blood groups: A, B, AB and O. Structure and pumping action of heart. Human heart is situated almost in the middle of thoracic cavity in a space called mediastinum between the two lungs. Heart is hollow, muscular, conical organ about the size of one's fist. The narrow apex is tilted towards left. Its length is about 12 cm, breadth is 9 cm and weight is about 250 to 300 grams. Pericardium. Heart is enclosed in double-layered peritoneum called pericardium. It consists of 2 layers. 1. Fibrous pericardium. It is the outer layer made up of tough, inelastic fibrous connective tissue. 2. Serous pericardium. It is the inner layer made up of outer parietal layer and inner visceral layer. The parietal layer forms inner lining of fibrous pericardium, whereas the visceral layer or epicardium adheres to heart, forming its outer covering. In between the parietal and visceral layers, a pericardial space is present which is filled with pericardial fluid. Then heart wall. The wall of heart is composed of three layers. One, outer epicardium, composed of single layer of flat epithelial cells. Two, middle layer myocardium, composed of cardiac muscle fibers responsible for contraction and relaxation of heart. 3. The inner layer endocardium, composed of single layer of flat epithelial cells. Then external structure of heart. Human heart consists of 4 chambers, 2 superior, small, thin-walled receiving chambers called atria, and 2 inferior, large, thick-walled distributing chambers called ventricles. Externally, a transverse groove is present between the atria and the ventricles called atrioventricular groove or coronary sulcus. The interventricular sulcus is present between the right and left ventricles. In this sulci, there are situated coronary arteries and coronary veins. The coronary arteries supply oxygenated blood to the heart, while coronary veins collect deoxygenated blood from the heart. The coronary veins join to form coronary sinus, which opens into the right atrium. Right atrium is larger in size than the left. From the right ventricle arises pulmonary trunk, while from the left ventricle arises systemic aorta. Internal structure of heart. Internally, the heart is 4-chambered with 2 atria and 2 ventricles. Atria. The atria are thin-walled receiving chambers separated from each other by interatrial septum. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from all over the body through superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and from heart through coronary sinus. The opening of inferior vena cava is guarded by eustachian wall, while the opening of coronary sinus is guarded by Thebesian wall. An oval depression, the fossa ovalis, is present on the right side of the interatrial septum. It represents foramen oval, an oval opening in the interatrial septum of the fetus. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs through 4 openings of pulmonary veins. Each atrium opens into the ventricle of its side through atrioventricular aperture guarded by walls made up of connective tissue. The right atrioventricular wall has 3 flaps, hence called tricuspid valve, while left atrioventricular valve has 2 flaps, hence called bicuspid valve or mitral valve. These valves are attached to pulmonary muscles of ventricles by chordae tendon. The chordae tendon prevent the valves from turning back into the atria during the contraction of ventricles. The ventricles are 2 thick-walled distributing chambers separated from each other by interventricular septum. Left ventricle has thickest wall as it has to pump blood to all parts of the body. The inner surface of the ventricle is thrown into a series of irregular muscular ridges called colmi-carni. Pulmonary trunk or aorta arises from the right ventricle carrying deoxygenated blood to lungs for oxygenation. Systemic aorta arises from left ventricle carrying oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. Pulmonary aorta and systemic aorta has 3 semilunar valves at the base which prevent backward flow of blood during ventricular diastole, that is relaxation. Pumping action of heart. The heart acts as a pumping organ. The rhythmic contraction is called systole and relaxation diastole. Combiningly both is called heartbeat. The heart beats about 72 times per minute and pumps about 5 liters of blood per minute. Conducting system of heart. Human heart is myogenic, that means originated from muscle. The heartbeat originates in modified cardiac muscles called sinoatrial node (SA node), which lies in the wall of right atrium near the opening of superior vena cava. The SA node is called pacemaker because it has power of generation of wave of contraction. The wave of contraction or cardiac impulse generated by SA node is conducted by cardiac muscle fibers to both the atria, causing their contraction, that is atrial systole. The atrioventricular node, that is AV node, is located in the wall of the right atrium near the opening of coronary sinus, receives the wave of contraction generated by SA node through internodal pathways. Now bundle of His. It arises from AV node and divides into right and left bundle branches located in the interventricular septum. The bundle branches give rise to Purkinje fibers which penetrate into myocardium of ventricles. The bundle of His and Purkinje fibers conduct the wave of contraction from AV node to myocardium of ventricles, causing their contraction, that is ventricular systole. Working of heart, cardiac cycle. The events associated with one heartbeat is cardiac cycle. It lasts for 0.8 seconds. Each heartbeat includes atrial systole, ventricular systole and joint diastole. So first, atrial systole. The deoxygenated blood from the right atrium enters the right ventricle through atrioventricular aperture and the backflow is prevented by tricuspid valve. The oxygenated blood from left atrium enters the left ventricle through atrioventricular aperture. The backflow is prevented by bicuspid valve. The atrial systole lasts for 0.1 second. Ventricular systole. The deoxygenated blood from the left ventricle enters the pulmonary trunk, which carries blood to lungs for oxygenation. The oxygenated blood from the left ventricle enters the aorta, which carries blood to all parts of the body. The backflow of blood is prevented by semilunar valves. The ventricular systole lasts for 0.3 seconds. Joint diastole or complete cardiac diastole. Both atria and ventricles undergo relaxation in this. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body through superior vena cava, inferior vena cava and coronary sinus. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs through two pairs of pulmonary veins. The joint diastole lasts for 0.4 seconds. Regulation of cardiac activity. Normal activities of the heart are regulated by specialized muscle which are auto-regulated, hence the heart is called myogenic. The cardiovascular center lies in the medulla oblongata of the brain. Sinoauricular node receives sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves which secrete adrenaline and acetylcholine respectively. Adrenaline stimulates and increases the heartbeat while acetylcholine decreases the heart rate. During inspiration, heart rate increases. During expiration, it falls. This phenomenon is sinus arrhythmias. Blood vessels. The study of blood vessels is angiology. There are three types of blood vessels. 1. Arteries. They carry the blood away from the heart to different parts of the body. They carry oxygenated blood except in pulmonary arteries. These are thick-walled, muscular, elastic and without walls. They are deeply situated in the body, having narrow lumen and showing high blood pressure for efficient circulation of blood. Arteries divide and redivide into arterioles, which further divide and redivide into capillaries. The wall of the artery is made up of three layers: outer tunica externa, middle tunica media and inner tunica interna. 2. Capillaries. Capillaries are the thinnest of the blood vessels and formed by division and redivision of arteriole. The wall is made up of squamous epithelium or endothelium. It is permeable to water and dissolved substances. Exchange of respiratory gases, nutrients, excretory products between blood and tissue takes place through wall of capillary. Capillaries unite to form venules. 3. Veins. Veins carry blood from different parts of the body to the heart. They carry deoxygenated blood except pulmonary veins. These are thin-walled with semi-lunar valves to prevent backward flow of blood. These are superficially situated, having broad lumen and showing low blood pressure. The wall of vein is made up of 3 layers similar to artery, but comparatively they are very thin. Pulmonary and systemic circulation. Human heart is 4-chambered and shows double circulation. The blood follows 2 routes, pulmonary and systemic. The circulation between heart and lungs is pulmonary, while between heart and body organs is systemic circulation. Pulmonary circulation, the course of blood from the right ventricle to the left atrium through lungs, is pulmonary circulation. The right ventricle pumps deoxygenated blood into the pulmonary trunk, which carries it to the lungs for oxygenation. The oxygenated blood from the lungs is brought to left atrium by 2 pairs of pulmonary veins. Systemic circulation, the course of blood from the left ventricle to the right atrium of heart through body organs is systemic circulation. The left ventricle pumps oxygenated blood into the systemic aorta, which carries it to all body organs except lungs. The deoxygenated blood from the body organs is brought to right atrium by superior and inferior vena cava. Coronary circulation. The cardiac muscles of heart receive oxygenated blood through coronary arteries. The deoxygenated blood is collected by coronary veins joined to form coronary sinus, which opens into the right atrium. Heartbeat and pulse. The rhythmic contraction and relaxation of heart is heartbeat. Each heartbeat includes 1 systole, contraction, and 1 diastole, relaxation. The heart of healthy person beats 72 times per minute, which is heart rate. During each heartbeat, ventricles pump about 70 ml of blood. This is stroke volume. It means heart pumps about 72 multiplied by 70 ml, that is 5040 ml, or approximately 5 liters of blood per minute. It is cardiac output. Tachycardia means fast heart rate, usually more than 100 beats per minute. And bradycardia means slow heart rate, generally below 60 beats per minute. Pulse. Pulse is a pressure wave that travels through the arteries after each ventricular systole. The pulse may be felt in any artery that lies near the surface of the body. The radial artery at the wrist is most commonly used to feel the pulse. The pulse rate is same as that of heart rate, 72 per minute. Pulse rate is higher in standing position and it is lower in lying position. Next is rhythmicity of heartbeat. The rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the heart is heartbeat. Heart shows autorhythmicity. The autorhythmic fibers perform 2 important functions. 1. They act as pacemaker, setting the rhythm for heart, and 2. They form conducting system for conducting impulses throughout heart muscles. The components of conducting system are SA node, AV node, bundle of His, right and left bundle branches, and Purkinje fibers. The cardiac excitation begins at SA node, hence called pacemaker. From SA node, it spreads throughout atria, causing contraction. It also stimulates the AV node through internodal pathways. The impulse travels from AV node to bundle of His, right and left bundle branches, and ultimately to Purkinje fibers located in the walls of ventricles, causing their contraction. Blood pressure. It is the lateral pressure or force exerted by blood on the walls of the arteries. It is measured with an instrument called sphygmomanometer. It is measured in millimeters of mercury. It is of two types. Systolic blood pressure. It is maximum and responsible for flow of blood in the arteries. It is 120 millimeters of mercury. Diastolic blood pressure and about 80 millimeters of mercury. Thus, the normal blood pressure is 120 by 80 millimeters of mercury.